All right, welcome to Southern Oregon Progressive Podcast. My name is Betsy Cunningham, and I'm the host, or really a co-host. Kevin Bell, I think, will be joining us. If not in next week, we have a different show, but in the upcoming weeks, and hopefully will be the regular co-host with me. Um, Southern Oregon Progressive Podcast, we try to talk about issues that impact the lives of people that live in Southern Oregon. We are in Douglas County and primarily focus on that right now, but hope to expand the discussion, particularly around rural politics and ideas of, progressive populism that we think is probably um, the a good fit for the rural community. Tonight, our guest, I'll let John, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm John Hunter. I'm with Community Rights Douglas County, and I'm on the board of the Oregon Community Rights Network. And I'm no relation to Stephanie.
Oh, that's right. You guys have the same last name. I'm very observant. Okay. How about you, Melissa?
Good evening. My name is Melissa Sherwood. I'm a 2-year resident of Douglas County and am a member of different organizations, but know that I have so much to learn and I'm just grateful for this podcast and the ability to learn something every week. So thank you, Betsy.
Francis, you want to introduce yourself? You don't have to, but you can.
Sure, why not? I'm Frances Etherington. I've lived in Douglas County for over 50 years. I am a retired conservation director for Umpqua Watersheds and Cascadia Wildlands, and I focus a lot on our federal land um, projects. Over 50% of Douglas County is owned by the feds, and they have a lot of things like timber sales and such, and so I pay attention to that.
Thanks. Thanks for being here. Okay, so our special guest this evening is from Rural Organizing Project, which has been around over 20 years. It started not too long after I got here in 1990, and I started following it from then, and as followed it, and I think it's amazing, frankly, what you guys have been able to do and the network that you've been able to create and support all these years. And so Stephanie is an organizer for this area. You can tell exactly what that means, but go ahead,
Thank
tell
you.
us about you and ROP.
Yeah, Stephanie Hunter, she, her pronouns, and I am I've been a field organizer with ROP since February, doing time math. But I've had a relationship with ROP as somebody who started a human dignity group in Central Oregon in 2020, and then I was on the board for 3 years. And I live in Central Oregon. And so Douglas County is part of the area that I work in. I'm in all the Southwest counties. ROP works statewide, and then my focus is on the Southwest part of the state. Oh, you're muted, Betsy.
So you want to kind of tell us the realm of things that you do
Yeah.
for everyone, for the people, and what kind of organizing you do?
Yeah, so ROP, and as you shared, I mean, our ROP story started in 1992, and in that time period, it was founded because there was this group, the Oregon Citizens Alliance, that was trying to get anti-LGBTQ legislation in Oregon, in our Oregon Constitution, and the founder, Marcy Westerling, was like, yeah, I'm not okay with that. So in her efforts to try to kind of bring that attention to rural, she pulled in some amazing partners in and hit the road and formed the first 30 human dignity groups of Rural Organizing Project. And so what human dignity groups are autonomous, volunteer-led, grassroots groups that support multi-issues in rural Oregon. And so we are now in our 34th year, and there are over 95 human dignity groups in the network, and certainly more groups than that that we organize with. And what we do is so as a field organizer, I have now been to all of the counties that I'm field organizer for. I just, with my Douglas County trip recently, where I got to meet Melissa, which was amazing. I finally got to all my counties. So now I can kind of start building out a vision. And that starts with you all. So you're part of our network. And so what I do is I get to know you all and kind of figure out like what your organizing goals are, what like it's, countywide, citywide. And then it's part of like the network in rural Oregon as well. So we work on regional connections as well. So like the different groups in the different counties, like just learning how to like um, work in coalition together. We don't have to agree on everything, but how are we going to build power in our county together? Part of ROP's action plan right now is that because of the federal government targeting our immigrant neighbors, our trans and queer neighbors, poor people, any of us that are, are anti-authoritarian. We are working with on that regional resilience. So one of and maybe you've heard the 3.5%. There's Kit Chenoweth, yeah. They had done some research into that, and other very, very brilliant, smart people whose names I don't have memorized right now, that looking at different movements, pro-democracy movements and anti-authoritarian movements historically worldwide, that it's 3.5% of the population moving together in mass non-cooperation, civil resistance to prevent authoritarianism from taking hold. So we're working right now with other partner groups to get that non-cooperation training into the different regions in Oregon. Freedom Trainers is the organization that we're using curriculum from. There's other groups like Protect Oregon and working on getting folks trained in this non-cooperation training so we can start building in rural Oregon to build that power so we can start maybe general strikes, mutual aid, any of the things that we might be called on to do to knock out the pillars of authoritarianism. And one of the goals right now is to depolarize because we are so polarized and divided. So one of the other things that we're working on at ROP is a neighbor-to-neighbor toolkit. And that is canvassing neighbors around cost of living, around disaster preparedness, things that most of us share values around, no matter who you voted for. And that's especially true in Oregon or rural Oregon. For example, in Central Oregon, when there's a fire, it doesn't matter who you voted for. Somebody's
Right.
gonna come get your houses out, or get your houses out, get your horses out of a fire area, evacuation area. In when the group that I organize with in Redmond, in Collective Action, there was that heat dome that hit the state a couple summers ago. And so we were doing pop-up cooling shelters for really anyone, but specifically for our unhoused neighbors. And we had big trucks pulling up with loads of ice with bumper stickers that don't represent shared values. But what did they care about? They cared about people not overheating. And so there's lots of opportunities for us to start. It's not about the active opposition. Folks that have bought into the MAGA vision, we, you know, we that's not the folks that we need to be working on depolarizing. It's everybody else. It's that movable middle that we can start to find around shared values. And then part of that is connected to building that 3.5%. So the survey tool in the neighbor to neighbor toolkit, the questions are around cost of living. And then one of the questions is, hey, do you feel that our neighborhood, our town is prepared for disaster? And whether you say no or yes, that's the invitation. That's the, hey, like, could I get your phone number so I could follow up with you? We're going to do some Skillshare workshops. We're gonna, start a phone tree. We're gonna, so we can stay in relationship with those folks that we maybe go door to door with or have a table at the farmer's market and and gradually start. There's going to be some folks that we meet, we refer to them as HOTS, hot, warm, and cold. So the HOTS are the people that we're going to either knock on their door or talk to them at a table at the farmer's market, and they're going to just be so excited to meet us. They're going to be like, I'm, yay. Like I didn't know that there was people in my town that shared my values. But the warms are those movable middle, the folks that it could take us years to build a trusting relationship over time to start to depolarize in this effort to knock out the pillars of authoritarianism so we can repolarize back towards I don't want to say back towards creating a democracy that truly includes everyone, because we also have to recognize that our democracy has left out a lot of people since um, the founding. I don't want to use the word founding since the colonizing. There we go.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a better word of our country.
Forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just forever. I mean, it's one of my favorite Langston Hughes poems is about, America was never America.
Yeah.
And that really is very true. I read that when I was a young woman, and it's like, yeah, that um when you're white, particularly in the United States, it's a privilege that even if you're, my family wasn't poor, but even if you are poor, it's a privilege that you don't really appreciate,
Yeah,
until you start learning about other folks and their experiences. And
for sure.
so over the years, the human dignity that I've watched ROP do expands. Like for one, the immigrants' rights. I think you might have been, besides the labor organizing within the agricultural workers. I don't know of many other groups in the in Oregon that were working on immigrant rights.
Yeah, and so we right now ROP has in Cottage Grove and Hood River, there are two offices that are also immigrant help centers.
Oh, yeah.
And so those are acting as hubs for the communities in the surrounding areas, and then working in partnership with groups like Oregon for All, Portland Immigrant Rights Coalition, Pucoon. I don't want to leave anybody out, but and so what I've been doing as a field organizer is there are a lot of people that want to help and that are not directly impacted by what's by ICE. And so I'm been helping groups in specifically, Cottage Grove and Florence have been where I've been working the most right now, is helping them get their rapid response teams going. And so what that looks like is so in groups of folks that They're getting trained on usually by Portland Immigrant Rights Coalition, or PERC for short, on how to verify ICE, how to prevent creating fear in the community, because a lot, like 90% of the calls are rumors. But it's very valuable when we have a group of trained folks in our communities who can go and see, is that a rumor, or is ICE present? And also starting, especially for the hardest hit areas, so Cottage Grove, for example, which
Yeah.
is so close to Eugene,
Yeah.
they have um, unfortunately, this was 9 people were detained in no I think that was early November.
Yeah.
And so the community just like really showed up. They had a vigil. There's just like
I think Val Hoyle even showed up, our
yeah.
congresswoman. Yeah.
Hmm. And so I wish that, like, so proactively we're building these teams. In the wake of this happening, the community was just really, um, they were grieving. Like 9 of our community members were kidnapped and abducted, and
Yeah.
their families and their kids,
Yeah.
um, and so did emergency rapid response trainings. Somebody from the Hood River office, did like we put lots of miles on our vehicles at ROP. So she came out. We got some core folks trained. They're now doing patrols. They're keeping the training going. They they have a signal chat where they, communicate. They have a stronger connection with the folks in the Eugene Springfield rapid response. So we're ICE keeps changing up their tactics. So we have to stay nimble,
Yeah.
but we have lots of folks that are really, really eager to learn. And so I'm helping these groups get their core training done, helping them learn how to use Signal, how to get connected, how to make sure that they're working with regional leads. And each community is going to have its own, different culture and needs around that. And so I'm very eager to work with you all in Douglas County on rapid response. I never want to assume that it isn't already happening. So I want to kind of find out if y'all got this, then no problem. But
No.
if I can help, I would
Yeah.
love to help.
Yeah, no, that's why I reached out to you, in regard to this and
Yeah.
mentioned that, I wear a few hats, one of which is in the Democratic Party, and we've had a person visit us a few times as part of the community and is very concerned, and kind of a spokesperson. And even though we've not really seen any, nor has had the person, and they have a connection, right? That Spanish speaking that is monitoring, what is going on. But it's very unnerving the way that they explained how the folks who live here are intimidated already, right? They're already in prison, they're already impacted, even if ICE
Yeah.
hasn't stepped foot in Douglas County. But I think the rapid response is something we can't assume that that's not going to happen here in Douglas County because it hasn't.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it would be good for us to get involved, but I know that's beyond the Democratic Party is interested, that other people, indivisible other organizations are interested. Melissa, you have your hand up. You wanted to.
Yeah, I just want to, Stephanie, thank you so much for being here. I want to talk about a couple of things. Um, Having spoken with you and uh, at not only at the Pride meeting, but the fact that you and I got to spend some time on the phone talking about different things, um, I think that there are several small and emerging organizations in Douglas County based out of Roseburg and so I have to be careful in how I frame that because Douglas County is big and it goes all the way to Reedsport and I'm new to Douglas County. I've only been here a couple of years, but I see several organizations whose values I think align very closely with the human dignity groups. And John, I think I talked to you about Stephanie at our last
Yeah.
meeting. And when Stephanie and I talked the last time, my hope was that we could bring you back in early spring. And I know some groups, the Umpqua Valley BIPOC folks, the Indivisible folks, if, maybe this is a conversation for probably a sidebar, but to maybe get you at the library or someplace where we could get. I think there are a lot of small groups who could really benefit from ROPs, what you're doing, and who also because if I'm not mistaken, Umpqua Valley Rainbow Collective is the only human dignity group in all of Douglas County. Is that right?
I don't have my
Well,
copy
I
here,
think
but
that information from our last meeting, I thought it was there was just one in all of Douglas County, and it was Umpqua Valley Rainbow
I
Collective.
I believe so too. I want to just let's see,
Yeah,
Douglas.
because I might be mistaken.
I would
No, you're
argue as someone, as a homeless advocate, that Housing for Umpqua is actually a human dignity group. It's just a
Oh,
different
absolutely,
population.
Betsy.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
so,
100%.
and I think
Yeah.
that would not the BIPOC group also qualify as,
No, that's the thing. It's getting there's an application process. So
oh, you're talking about dignity groups through ROP.
within, yes, within
Yeah,
ROP.
okay.
Because
Oh, but
no, no,
that
no.
doesn't require you to be an ROP to be a human
Oh gosh,
dignity group.
no. No,
yeah.
you guys are you're killing it. You're doing everything absolutely right. I'm just talking about in terms of ROP. Um, so when we looked at the map, when Stephanie talked about the 95 plus different human dignity groups, when I saw the map, there was only one in Douglas County, and I kept thinking, well, I can think of all these other groups who to me meet that threshold of what a human dignity group is, including everything, Betsy, that you just mentioned, and including community rights. The fact that everything that Zach just worked on, that John, that you guys have worked on, the statement of rights and values. So part of it is trying to recruit more people, and then part of it is Betsy, excuse me, Stephanie, you have some kind of, and maybe you mentioned this now, and maybe it's part of the neighbor to neighbor toolkit, but you have some kind of questionnaire, you have
Mhm.
some kind of questionnaire type thing that helps people. Is that right? So you can sort of gauge where your community is at regarding certain issues. Am
Uh,
I, or
I think maybe the neighbor to neighbor toolkit is
maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Maybe it's the
yeah.
neighbor to neighbor toolkit. But also that you have resources to help. Do you have resources to help smaller organizations grow?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. That's what I thought
Yeah.
too. Okay. I mean, it seems like you have a lot to offer. Because in Douglas County, at least, and please take this with a grain of salt, my very limited experience here, it's only been 2 years, but I've seen all of these amazing groups, and many of them are emerging, and I see what you have, with your plethora of resources as something that would be great for these new and emerging groups, and because they're all filling a void. They're all meeting a need within the community, whether it be food not bombs or whatever. And especially now, Indivisible is a big one. But you've been around for so long. I feel like you have so much to offer and so much that you can teach us. So that's why I'm really excited about. And John, I hope you and I can talk about this more about bringing you back in the spring and inviting many of our partner organizations or kind of politically adjacent organizations to come and meet with you because I just feel like you have um, so much to offer us and that we have it's just it's nothing but upside. It's all upside.
Yeah, I can, so hitting on like, so yeah, the first one is yes, the human dignity groups in our network, but that's why I say more than 95 because we have 95 in our network, but you aren't required to be in our network to, for ROP to work with you. So there's a new
Right.
human dignity group, forming every day. And for me, like I'm always just get so excited when I find a new group. And building those connections is something that is it's something that I've done in Central Oregon for the last 5 years. And prior to that, I did organizing around special education advocacy, public education stuff. And disability, justice work. So
Yeah.
and building power through connection
Yeah.
is like huge. So that's
Well,
just
and also like utilizing the Human Dignity Network as a rapid response network. Like that's a pretty powerful network that you already have um as part of your would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. And when we think about the rural urban divide, just there's just rural folks are just used to like not having their needs met. So we
Yeah.
duct tape, grit, duct tape, cardboard, grit, and muck.
Yep.
That's what
Yep.
I always say. Like we figure out how to take care of each other.
Yeah.
That's our default position. And so that is just how we're gonna win in my
Yep.
viewpoint. And it's this, if we think of it like, just this ripple effect where, I mean, when I moved to Redmond, I was pretty sure I was the only, person with progressive values in Redmond. And
Right.
then I moved here in 2015. I was really trying to find my people, but I was really struggling. And
Yeah.
in 2020, like all the people that I want to know are out in the streets, because of the Black Lives Matter movement.
Right.
And then, and just in the last 5 years, ups, downs, but there's, this amazing like 3 county coalition that's really like forming. And that's the stuff that I just, again, as it ripples out and as we get more connected, that's how we're going to be able to show up for each other. It's mutual aid. It's getting
Yeah.
our people elected. It's
Yeah.
building the capacity of our groups. It's learning about, like what Betsy already named, our own privilege and how that shows up, like all
Yeah.
that, those things that we're going to accomplish together. And then the other part of your question was about, tools for groups. So ROP's bread and butter is capacity building. So we
Right.
have a capacity building toolkit that has different tools in about named core leadership, communication, database, power mapping. Should we become a nonprofit or not? So anything like a kind of a group could be like, how are we going to, if you're not growing, you're shrinking is another one of our
Yeah.
SOPisms.
Yeah.
And part of like growing is also moving in coalition, or if not coalition, because we don't always all agree on everything, but cooperation, uh,
Right.
at least.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we could when we think about me coming back out, and I can also show up virtually. So between now and
Right.
like I
Right.
love in-person organizing, and if y'all want to put me up on a screen hybrid, like let's do it.
Yeah.
But we have a training called Organizing for Everyone, and that was actually my gateway into ROP. It was 2020. I'm sitting at home. I'm looking for my people, and I don't even remember if it was like a Facebook post or something. I went to an organizing for everyone. The Elias, who is now one of our co-directors, who I get to, yeah, and Elias said hi, Betsy, by the way. But he was like my first organizer, was the one that, was like, you should start a group. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, ROP seeded Redmond Collective Action, which is, still organizing 5 years later. We do civic education. We've been building the bench for getting progressive folks elected. In Redmond, we've been, one of the things that, we like, so Bend is like our most populous city in Deschutes County. But to win an election, you got to win Redmond. So we've been, kind of getting our voice in there, like being they love us and they hate us. Depends on the day, right?
Right.
But they recognize that, like the power that's building in Redmond is, a big part of like Deschutes County really representing everyone, improving the lives of everyone, everyone having a voice. And then we've been doing a Sunday street kitchen for the last 5 years as well. So we haven't missed one Sunday. We serve over 100 meals every Sunday. We bring supplies. And then part of that work in the last 5 years has been relationship building with nonprofits, with a continuum of supports for our unhoused neighbors. And when we first started serving meals in 2020, all we had was a winter shelter in Redmond, which was that, like I think it would maybe go from like November to like end of February, maybe March. And now there's a continuum of housing supports. We have safe parking, we have high barrier shelter, we have low barrier shelter, tiny home village.
Wow.
There's a lot of work on permanent supportive housing happening. So, and we were like, just like the grassroots, like kids out there being like, we're going to serve some meals and y'all can't tell us what to do. And and then we started, showing up at some tables and joining some meetings and be like, all right, you guys have some stuff to teach us, but we have some stuff to teach you too. And great relationships have been built, just through that process. I'm going off on a tangent at this point,
Yeah.
but building
That's right.
capacity is my bread and butter too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually what has to happen. And on that 3.5%, it's not 3.5% of us showing up at rallies. It's
Correct.
3.5 of us being engaged in the political work and the community work and civic life that's going to make that change. That's going to stop that authoritarianism. And at the local level, because I preach all the time, that's the only place we're going to make change really is at a local level. And if you
Yeah.
look at you're talking about that middle of the road, that middle, ground earlier. One of the things the Southern Oregon Progressive is really a populist, progressive populism, because I truly believe, just by living here over the last 35 years and living in a very different community before I came here, that there is this potential, and some of that is because of the people who will show up to put out a fire if it's next door to them here,
Yeah.
instead of watch it burn, which maybe Long Beach, California, where I'm from, would have just done that.
Yeah.
Um, so I think there's this real difference. But one of these days we're gonna probably talk about, should you be in court, should you get a 501(c)(3) or not? I'm gonna say not, and for all the reasons the people who say not say, which is that basically sometimes getting the seat at the table really does co-opt people. And I've watched it for decades, over and over and over again, where activists who were really strong advocates of a cause get compromised once they sit at the table. There needs to be some of us who are poking the bear from the outside all of the time. And I
And
have really preferred to do that because it doesn't, you don't have to, go along to get along. And sometimes getting along gets you screwed. Okay. So anyway, John, I'll let you and then Melissa.
Okay, yeah. Excuse me. First of all, I wanted to go, I wanted to back up what Melissa said. We would be glad to have you back in the, later on next year. If you can join us, that'd be great. Are you aware of any of what's going on in Lincoln County? They have one of our members. I was talking to her the other day. There's of course there's probably a lot of rumor stuff, like you say, but ICE is getting it has been in Lincoln County. There's a lot of concern there, and they're looking for help. They've been going around seeking real estate buildings, places that they can lease, that they can use for holding facilities. Are you familiar with any of that?
Yeah, we've definitely been part of a thinking partner on that, and the coastal human dignity groups have been just showing up in the most amazing ways. We I they had and it's primarily indivisible groups, and then groups that are led by Hispanic and Latine community who have been working in coalition. But like, so I mean, and you probably were aware of this, like the very first meeting in Newport, I believe 800 people showed up in person. And there were, I believe, like another 500 like on the Zoom. And I don't even like, don't want to lowball that number. It could have been like much more than that.
But
And
there were overflow rooms too.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that was like one of the things that stood out for me with that is, folks have been, doing No Kings, hands off, different, street demonstrations since January. And I know that there's some criticism, about that, like, oh, you show up on a convenient day, and get your permit,
Yeah.
work with the police.
Yeah.
But we, I don't think that 800 people could have been mobilized that quickly if we had not been finding each other for months and months and months at these demonstrations.
Yeah.
So that when we think about that ripple effect and that building of power, that was such an amazing showing. And what's so great about that is there's an unlikely allies opportunity there, because the Coast Guard helicopter that was, I believe it's back now, but it's like the news changes every day. So
Yeah.
um, the Coast Guard helicopter was moved out of the community, and so this group called the Fishermen's Wives,
Yep.
who had advocated for the helicopter, I want to say like 40 years ago, were like,
Yeah.
mm-mm. And so they got, lawyers, and, like they, already had, this is like, these are our loved ones that you're putting
Yeah.
at risk here. And these might not be folks that we would have normally gotten to know. Maybe
Right.
I don't know their politics, right?
Right.
But what do we all agree on? We agree on families being safe. Your families who are out, on the waters, and our immigrant families who are being terrorized. So I know that there's groups that are working on relationship building with other people in the community. So there's an opportunity there for us to get to know each other better and depolarize around the shared value of our loved ones being safe. And so yeah, so there's indivisible waves, there's a indivisible, like a North Coast indivisible. I never want to leave anyone out, but there's a group, Florence organizes, so Florence Indivisible. So they've been really working on showing up for city council, letter writing, getting the information out, and then working with the other groups on business canvassing businesses. Because if ICE takes over, whatever, a hotel or a bunch of hotel rooms, well, that's going to impact, um, other than, not just being, unethical and something that we don't want in our communities, in Oregon, it also, impacts tourism,
Right,
impacts
right. That's what they're saying.
restaurants.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what they were saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
It's
those
a,
groups, oh, sorry, go ahead, John.
yeah, it's a ripple. It's a ripple effect on the economy because
Yeah.
people don't, yeah, because people don't want to go there.
Right.
So
Yeah.
so folks are doing canvassing of businesses, and paying attention to like are there ads for ICE agents,
Right.
showing up? So there's some, yes, amazing work, and ROPs, like, absolutely working with those human dignity groups on the ground, and then the statewide partners, who are also, Protect Oregon, is one of those that is, I would encourage you to subscribe to.
Um, Betsy, do you care if I jump in?
You
I
had
think
your
you're
hand
on
up.
mute, Betsy.
Yeah.
Said you had your hand up. Yeah.
Do you care? Okay. I'm just gonna jump in with a couple of questions. One, Stephanie, you've mentioned politics a few times, and I have a couple of different questions. One is, are you guys a 501c3?
We are.
Does that preclude you from doing anything political?
So we can't, endorse
Like
candidates.
endorse anybody?
Yeah.
Okay,
Um,
but if like it right now in Douglas County, um, I you probably don't know this about us, but we have a county commission that's just made up of 3 commissioners,
mhm.
unlike 5, which most county commissions have. But we have 3 county commissioners, and they're sorry to be frank, but they're garbage. They're just terrible, terrible, terrible commissioners who um always award themselves a pay raise while the county crashes and burns. But this election cycle, we have 4 great candidates who are opposing our commissioners. And I'm talking about some really talented people who can put up a fight against these guys. If they wanted, would you say, in terms of your survey tool or your neighbor to neighbor toolkit, would that be something that you would think that a candidate might benefit from?
Yes.
Okay.
I can give
Okay.
you specifics on why when you're ready.
That's what I thought. Okay. So, and is that free for any candidate who
Oh,
wants to use to learn from that toolkit?
oh yeah, all of our resources, once they're, they're developed, and we're still in the test drive phase of the neighbor to neighbor toolkit, but it should be out, fairly soon. I can
Okay.
even share
And
drafts of it.
part of that is that sort of that hot, warm, cold, where you sort of meet people where they are and you figure out, okay, this is someone who absolutely, nope, I'm not going to change their mind. Maybe I can change their mind. Yes, I can change their mind. Is that is that too broad of a generalization?
No, I don't think it's too broad. In the toolkit, we kind of define, like, what do we mean by, hot, warm, and cold. Um,
Yeah.
and the warm, like, I mean, again, hots are going to be those people, like, that are just like, when do you meet? And
Yes.
give me a
You are
job.
my people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, and the warms are our coworkers. They're our family members. They're,
And they might be the people who have never been politically active, but
yeah.
suddenly find that they are so upset with what's happening. I think those are the people where there's a lot of potential for people who maybe have never, and it's hard to say that at this point in time, given that we're in Trump point two, but there are still a lot of people who are afraid of getting involved politically. But when they see things that are happening in their community, and when we can have a dialogue about, well, isn't it so horrible how prices are, or isn't it horrible how we've lost, this factory or whatever. And we can talk about, especially economic issues seem to be something that crosses barriers when you talk about economic issues. But I'm sort of spiraling. But I okay, so basically I just wanted to know, for not just our county commission folks, but people running for office, if they wanted to use your toolkit, that they would be able to do so.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we like, so if you go to our website, rop.org,
Right, right.
there's a resource tab, and that's where you can if you could search for, immigrant justice, you can
Yeah.
find all of our toolkits. And
Okay.
every month, so if you subscribe to our newsletter, every month we do something called a KTA, which stands for Kitchen Table Activism.
Right. Right. I knew about that. Okay. Yes.
All of those archives will, be on the website, and I mean stuff that goes back to the 90s on how to have a living room conversation,
Yes.
all lives on there.
Yes.
And so the neighbor to neighbor toolkit, it is a toolkit. So it will be like, hey, here's how to use it. Here's some ways you can use this with your group.
Right.
So it has both, it's a survey tool for canvassing, but it's also, we could be using that tool within our own groups to get more like aligned as a group.
Right.
Yeah, we don't have to agree on everything, but if like some core values, when I took this toolkit, test drove it, when I met with you all, it was more like hello, and it was the Umpqua Pride that was kind of leading
Right.
the conversation.
Yeah.
With some of the other groups that I met with, we had them test out the survey tools, surveying each other. And that was actually really powerful because they really hadn't gotten to know each other on that level.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that shaped the toolkit to where now we have a section in there like, you know, do to test this out with your group, practice with your
Well,
group.
that makes me go back to the human dignity groups. Is there a cost when you apply? I know there's an application process, and John, I was hoping that community rights would want to apply to be a human dignity organization with rural organizing project, because I think everything that you and Zach have been working for and the rest of the group, eh, to me, it screams human dignity, organization or group. Do we need to pay a fee, I guess?
So we have a suggested $50 dues every year.
Okay,
And if you can't afford it, we'll figure it out.
but that's dues. That makes sense. No. Okay, that's what I wanted to know. But I just think,
What
like going back to, oh, I'm sorry, I'll shut up.
One of the things I just want to clarify, just for anybody who may watch this, that 501(c)(3)s cannot endorse candidates of any kind. They cannot do
Right,
partisan politics. What they can do, one of the things they do, and one of the things that ROP does, is usually when there are ballot measures, statewide ballot measures, or even local ones, the Democratic Party actually buys their guide and distributes it here in order for for recommendations on certain policies. And that's true for every 501(c)(3). One of the reasons that I said I think people need to not do 501(c)(3)s, ironically, Housing First Umpqua is a 501(c)(3). So I also understand the reasons why you have, what depends on what you want to do. If you really want to change things, except in the organizing model that ROP has. All of their stuff is excellent materials. You wouldn't be here if I did not think so. I'm going to be
yeah,
just straight out, because there's a lot of groups out there that say they organize. They say they are mutual aid. They don't understand the concepts. and and they really are not that effective in helping people learn how to do stuff. Bottom
Right.
line, when I was a young woman, I went to organizations who had it all set out. I still have a 3-ring notebook from one of them for decades ago. Organizing hasn't really changed, hasn't changed since my dad was an organizer and the CIO in the fields of California and Arizona.
For
You know,
sure.
it hasn't really, the technology we use, the messaging, the one good
Yeah.
thing about here and now, the one good thing I think about things like this program, I think these should be happening in every community. Because if you go back and you look at who we've talked to for almost every Sunday since May, it's a lot of the things that people need to know to engage in their communities, things that piss you off,
Mm.
right? But not
Yeah.
just be pissed off, it's being able to find out, how do you strategically attack this, right? How do you go after it? The other thing is, it's timing. The reality is that when you're in Redmond, right, and that happens, there's timing that dictated your ability to take advantage of it. I
Yep.
think for all of us in rural Oregon, particularly populist progressives, the time is now. I see, everybody's, fearful about Trump. Yeah, I'm not unaware of the problem. But I also think it's a wonderful opportunity. Even, and Stephanie and I met online, a few months ago. Time escapes, it might have been 6 months ago, about a network that I've been trying to establish for a year of people like all of us, right, throughout the
Right.
state of Oregon. Many
Yeah.
of them initially contacted, actually because of the Bernie run in 2016. But then
Yeah.
all these other movements, is to say, what's your expertise? What issues do you know about? Is it government? Is it a particular issue? And then as those things connect, because the one thing I really like about ROP is you didn't just stop at your special interest. You just didn't stop at your identity politics issue, which often is the other flaw in organizing. Is very rarely do you see this taking what you learn, which is really the mutual aid, and showing other groups that had the similar power structure issue to how they make change in their community. And that's
Yeah.
really very, very important as information of how to do this, because people think they know how to do it and they go to city council and they bitch and yell. And not that they listen to you anyway, because I'm pretty a disciplined speaker. And if that worked, we'd have no homeless in Roseburg.
Right.
But the reality is people burn out then. When they
Yeah.
interact with government that way, they just burn themselves out and they say, oh, I can never change things, right? You can't change City Hall. The other concept I really like, which is what Community Rights has done with your paper that John and Zach worked on, is this idea that really we have to do it ourselves sometimes, right? That we've really become dependent on this government, you know, and we believe that they were doing what we thought they should. And then you wake up and you say, holy shit, what happened? um, and this
Yeah.
is that holy shit time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we can
It
all be grateful for Trump, right? Or, by
is.
illuminating what
He's the
holy shit
great
can mean.
uniter.
At some level, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
But I'll jump off my soapbox for the moment. But I do think that the real value of ROP is the things that you said, Melissa. Because I look around me, I'm 70 years old. I'm not going to train you guys to do all the shit, and I don't think most people my age, even who else knows it, is really going to do that. And ROP is a great resource, even if you just took their stuff and
Yeah,
followed
but
the
Betsy,
stuff that they have in writing.
I'd love to look at that binder. Your
My,
organizing binder. I bet that is just filled with gold.
oh God, because I'm a hoarder. I've got stuff
No,
in storage. It's got to go before I die. My kids are going to be
no,
pissed.
no,
They
you
had to
need to
live
publish
through
that thing. Publish it.
it. Yeah. Well, I know me, and that's not happening. So
Well, I will help you,
anyway,
girlfriend.
yeah, I've had other friends offer to do the same thing. Funny thing you say, and
Well,
still,
okay,
uh,
well, that's a challenge that I'm ready to take up.
sure, okay. Anybody else want to? John, Larry, anybody want to ask Stephanie questions? Make a comment.
Well, I just want to say, Betsy, hopefully John and I can get together and work with you. I mean, of course, we can do it Zoom, and we know where you live, the winter time is far from accommodating. And so if we have to push off, you're actually coming to, because I would personally much rather have you be with us in person. And if that's not till late spring, early summer, that's okay. But I think that there are so many of these emerging groups, these small groups, um, who I just feel like, um, with everything that you have to offer, especially with the toolkit and the resources and the mutual aid and the rapid response, I see a lot of these small groups that some of them I'm part of and some of them I'm not, but I know people who are. And I think this is an established organization who's you've got a track record, and
Hmm.
that's really exciting to me, and I want to hook people up with you. So if we can get a presentation at the library and bring in some of our friends from these other groups, I think that really excites me because
I'm
I
still holding February 7th, like 6th or 7th for y'all.
okay, that's what we had
So,
originally talked about.
okay. It's in my, I
John,
just
sorry, I
double checked
didn't
my
tell you about
calendar.
that, but that's what we had talked about.
Yeah.
But it also depends on you being able to get here.
Yeah. So it's all, like if, as far as getting over the
So
pass,
if it has to be March 7th, that's okay too.
if we
Or
need to push it
you know what
out,
I mean?
it's really like more sudden weather. I mean, if the pass is just,
Clear.
cold, but
And
it's not, then I can get over. It's like if there's a storm, that would be like,
Wait, what?
I'm sorry, I can't make it.
You mean
John and John
The
and I will
ODOT
get
tax
together.
doesn't, the ODOT tax, isn't that on hold? It might be they don't have any ODOT workers to clear those roads
That's
for you.
Oh,
that's a very real reality. That's
I mean,
like
I think
very
they had to
true.
put it on pause, the budget on pause when the
Yeah,
signatures made the ballot. And
yeah,
so
that's super
that'll be
true.
an interesting. I think that they already took care of this one or something that won't be a problem. But so on the
But we'll
tax
work
bill
on
for ODOT.
that and hopefully get you Stephanie here very soon, early in the new year, because I think like the Umpqua Valley BIPOC, and I know like Food Not Bombs. There are just we have so many. We're so fortunate because we have all of these emerging groups who have all of this great energy and they're doing a lot of good. And if they can like coordinate with you, you have these resources that will help them with capacity building and all of that stuff. I think it's just a win-win personally.
yeah,
So,
I love it. And, I'm like, I'm also hearing that you have vast expertise within your own community. So
oh God, no, I
don't wait
don't.
on me to
No,
have your,
That's Betsy. That's not me. That would be Betsy or John. But thank you. I am
Yeah,
trying.
yeah. John knows how to poke the bear.
Yes. John is the bear much of the time.
well, I made when my last road trip, I had a coffee with someone in Reedsport. So, I know that and it sounds like there's somebody, I still need to get connected with them. I don't want to use people's names on the podcast since I
No, no,
haven't
that's
yet.
fine.
But there's somebody who in Reedsport who is doing some of the bench building around local governance that I'm excited to get connected with. And I have to remind Andrew that he was going to connect me with them.
And I will just put on my indivisible hat and say, indivisible Douglas County needs to do better by places like Reedsport. Indivisible Douglas County is not just Roseburg. And I know that we're aware of that. And so but Reed's not just Roseburg, sorry, not just Roseburg. And that we need to reach out and be better partners with Reedsport because they're out there doing they're doing a lot of good work. Um and a lot of us here in Roseburg really want to support them in Reedsport. So yeah.
So the other good thing about ROP, I think, and and if I'm wrong, you can correct me, that somebody doesn't have to be associated with a group. They can just be a person who looks at your webpage and say, hey, I want to organize around this issue. And you help folks right at that level.
Yeah, and often that would be, hey, have you met this group? So that happens all the time where people email our office at rop.org and they're like, I'm concerned about this, and we get them connected with their local human dignity group, is most often what we do. But if folks are, yeah, wanting to, I'll get on the phone with anybody who wants to brainstorm around power mapping or, talking about some stuff that they want to get going. But usually it's going to be around building capacity. So who else can you tap to help you with this?
Mhm.
That's wonderful.
And in the coalition building, and that's why I started in the middle group of voters, non-affiliated voters. We have almost as many non-affiliated voters as we do
Right.
Republicans, which outnumber Democrats 2 to 1, more than 2 to 1. So you
Right.
have this huge potential voting block. Now, sadly, we know they probably are least likely to vote, right, as far as the voter turnout. And certainly in races where they don't see when there's a partisan race, like in the May election, that they find that, sometime, well, I can't vote for anybody. But county commissioners here are nonpartisan, and so they actually can vote for those races. City councils are nonpartisan, and they can vote. There's no runoff in the city councils around here. And there are ways that and that is part of the focus of the organizing that I do a lot within the Democratic Party now around the county commission races, but more so not necessarily as a Democrat, but not against the Democrat at the local level, where a group of us are looking at the local elections in November. There's only one. There's no primary for city council and mayor's races here. So I think that whole capacity building of who and working on issues and focusing on those economic issues. And it's always, it's the economy stupid. I hate, Carville is accredited with that, statement. If you
Yeah.
don't know who Carville is, be
He's
grateful.
an
Um,
old dude who needs to go bye-bye.
well,
Listening to the talk has been hard.
he is a Democrat, and he was heavily involved in the Clinton administration. But I think he's right. It's always the economy. When you look at even the issue of homelessness, it's affordable housing,
Yeah.
and services. It's about money and who's going to pay money, who has the ability to pay money. Constantly on the two social media that I use, Facebook and Nextdoor locally, it's always about, I don't want to pay for this, I don't want to pay for this. Well, you're already
Yeah.
paying for this, and there's you know that concern. So I think everybody, and it's getting worse, and so that's absolutely, even in the best of times, it's still the economy, interestingly enough.
Yeah.
And other issues, like I said before, that public safety. I want to say that during that heat dome that you mentioned, there was actually a homeless woman who died in that heat dome in a parking lot a block away from my house.
Oh,
And it was
God.
114 degrees, or 113, 114
Did
in
you
Roseburg
confirm
that
your
day.
hair appointment so I can eliminate this?
Oh,
What?
Larry, I think we might have you on speaker, Larry. Um,
Um, And prior to that happening, because of the heat dome escalating, my colleague who helped found Housing for Umpqua, she contacted the county and the city. And basically, they had nothing planned for people living outside, nothing at all. And basically said, well, I can't remember which one it was. It said, well, we put the information up on our website of what they can do. Well, the things you tell them they can do, and and the same thing with fire, is like, get out of being outside, right? Get inside somewhere. So I think people are concerned about it because we've had so many wildfires. I can see that being that public safety, but also that topic that can bring people together. The economy may further divide some people. But that safety issue, I think most people understand that they want to be
Mhm.
safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the other pieces of the toolkit, and it partners with the survey tool, but it's a guide on how to kind of work with your groups on developing your own kind of how to say it guides.
Oh, I
Um,
love that.
because we are, polarized as well.
Yeah.
There are things that people will say that hit us in the values, and we might have a reactive response, which
Right.
closes the door for that movable middle. So it's having, so for example, we had a group get together in Redmond, and the guide, it says like, when they say this, here are some potential responses, and what's the goal? And so the conversation in the small group that met, like it really, pisses me off when people say that, the like houseless people are all on drugs and they don't work. Um,
Right.
and, which we know there's a lot of myths
Yeah.
around. And so when I was like, okay, so if we're going to be talking to somebody that we want to keep in the conversation, how might we respond to that? And she was like, well, do you know any homeless people? And I was like, that could, I don't know, would that open a door? What do you think? And so as we were, like kind of chewing on it, like, we kind of got to that place where, it was like, I'm concerned about people who live outside too. Because I know that a lot of them actually do work full time, but it's housing. And then you can kind of, and then
Right.
hey, are you concerned about housing? What are some of your thoughts around that?
Yeah.
So creating these how to say it guides so we can practice with each other to be less reactive when some of those topics come up, that there's those disinformed responses, that this is still somebody that's a movable middle, but they're maybe saying something that they don't have enough information around. And there's some myths that are out there. And so that's another part of the toolkit that I'm excited about because I know that that's the thing. If it's somebody who, again, a cold, thank you, have a nice day. We move on. But being able to stay regulated and stay in conversation when there's, things are hitting us in the values, and we get a little reactive. But it's also that discernment piece, because I'm not gonna, if somebody is like, I don't debate genocide, then that's a cold for you. We're gonna step out
Yeah.
of the conversation. I don't
Yeah.
debate reproductive justice. That's a cold for you. Step
Yeah.
out of that conversation. So if there are some values you're like, these are not debatable values for me, then it gives you more discernment in the tool as well, to be like, these are the topics somebody else is going to need to take on the emotional labor here, because that's not going to be me. Uh,
Yeah.
so trying to
All
meet
right.
Can I jump in?
where they're at.
I
Yeah.
just,
Well, actually, I kind of want to wrap it up because I
oh,
want to
I'm
just
sorry,
talk about a
Betsy.
couple other things.
Yep.
So, you have some kind of last comment you want to make, Stephanie, before you?
Yes, mark your calendars. We did decide that our next annual Rural Caucus and Strategy session is going to be April 25th and 26th. And I'm not sure if I can share the maybe location yet, so I'm gonna sit on that because that we're still discussing that. But the board did pick the weekend. So we would love to have you all there, have your groups there. And that again, the network shows up for the caucus and strategy session, and that is that sets our ROP's direction. So all of our action plan that you can see on our website, rop.org, is because that's what we heard from the network at our last caucus. So every caucus, you all show up, you tell us what you want us to work on, and that's what we work on. So, and then it's food and fun, and we have karaoke. I think
Yay.
last year was the first year for karaoke, and now we're just always gonna have karaoke. We're gonna figure it out because, and then we have had like a talent show. It was so much fun. So, hope you can make it. And
Yay.
yeah, I'm yeah, just stoked to be in community with y'all and excited to be your organizer and what we're gonna do together.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you for ROP.
Yes.
Thank you.
Right. You can stay if you want to listen to us, but you certainly are not obligated.
Oh no,
I just want to
I would
point out
love
I
to.
have
I'd love to hang out. Yeah.
I just want to point out I have one of the historic buttons from when Marcy was here.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
the
Oh,
OCA was the
Francis.
Oregon Conservation Alliance that was against all the gay folks. So we worked with
Oh,
Marcy on that
wow.
issue.
It's amazing.
That's
Wow.
so cool.
Oh, I love it when people are like, I knew Marcy. I love
Yeah.
hearing I wish I could have met Marcy, but I'm just excited that she created this place where I get to have like the best job ever. And
That's
yeah.
awesome.
I had a few conversations with her. Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah,
Betsy,
it's great work.
Do you want to talk about the vigil for the unhoused folks who perished this year?
Yeah, actually talked a little bit about it last week, but nationally, there's the homeless memorial next Sunday, actually the 21st, the longest night of the year, winter
Right.
solstice. And in Douglas County, we're having an event at the Stewart Park Pavilion starting at 1. And folks are compiling names, folks that are living outside. I was actually down at Deer Creek Park today talking to some folks to make sure we have names. The number of, that estimate are, pretty high as far as the number of people who have died while living outside. And I think I did share this last week, the statistic that has increased dramatically over the time that I have been involved in homeless issues since the 1980s, but even more in the last 20 years is the life expectancy of people who are chronically homeless is now estimated as 50 years old. They died 27 years earlier. Their life is shortened by 27 years. And if, we look at the world and we think of humanitarian crisis, but I don't know about you, but I see a humanitarian crisis out my window every single day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's homelessness. And I think really, if you can guilt trip and shame and do whatever you need, we need to, and certainly ultimately replace public officials and most public officials that control sweeps. These are city
Yeah.
public officials. They are not counties. They're not state government. They're
Yeah.
not federal government. Although, Trump's, plan for the homeless is pretty draconian.
Yeah.
But even already he started to attack them by changes in the SNAP benefits, food stamps, because
Yeah.
homelessness used to be an exempt category or a waiver of work requirements for able-bodied folks without dependents. And that's no longer the case. It's unrealistic. I mean, that was made non-exempt. That was made exempt years and years ago because they knew this foolishness of trying to, either make folks work who aren't housed, or worse yet, make them do job activities. Because one of the jobs in my life here was actually working with that population who were on food stamps when the welfare reform of the neoliberal Clinton administration came about. And it was that, is trying to help them figure out jobs. And when you're homeless, I mean, it's one thing if you're just unemployed, period, right? But it's when you're homeless, the idea of you having to do 30 hours of some kind of work search requirement is just
Yeah.
nonsense. It's just to torture them or, push them off anything, and it's just this whole idea that I heard in the 80s about homelessness,
Yeah.
right? So it's just crazy, crazy stuff. So anything you want to say anything else about the homeless memorial?
Well, would you like us to bring anything
Food,
like
anything, more.
meals for unhoused folks?
Yeah, that or originally Meg said finger food, so I put that out there. But
Okay.
today she said her team smiles kind of revolted and wanted to have something of more substance. So so whatever you want to
Okay.
bring. Here's
Okay.
my always been my potluck idea. It's called
Right.
potluck for a reason. Just bring something. I don't care what
Okay.
it
Will
is.
do. Will do.
And if you have any warm coats, we
Yeah.
have we have gloves and socks and hats, knit caps, but they're these thin ones that you buy in masses. We've done
Yeah.
things like that we have. But anything, tarps, I mean, if you're going to look at what's going to be
Okay.
survival gear, tarps that people can sleep under, even if they don't have a tent or a sleeping bag. I mean, and sleeping bags and tents or tarps are, wonderful, but they also cost a whole lot more.
I'm gonna
And
throw this out to you. I have a little bit of property, and I mean an acre and a half. If I were able to provide space for people, but we don't have like great restroom facilities or anything, but would that be helpful to provide like
for people to stay, yeah.
yes.
And if you could bring in a porta potty, I mean,
Yeah. And that might not cost
yes.
that much. I need to
Um,
talk to
it
my mom.
it years ago it really didn't cost that much because I we used to do it for the
Yeah.
community garden and it really, but I haven't priced it recently. But yeah, I mean the one thing is that people are being tortured. They are swept every 2 weeks
Yeah.
from
That
Deer Creek
I
in
can't take that.
mass.
And I no, I can't take that. Okay.
They can't take it. I was down there talking to them
No,
today.
I mean, I've
They're
got to do
crazy.
something. I've got to do something. Um,
Yes.
so hopefully we can. Hopefully we can.
Yes, that's a self-help thing, that kind of that mutual aid really is to just kind of
Yeah.
intervene. And at some level, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to tell you what legal risks that are involved. But
Yeah.
my knowledge of the county as far as code enforcement, unless somebody snitches on you, they ain't coming to do anything, right?
Okay.
If your
Okay.
neighbors don't know, and sometimes even if they know, they ain't going to stick their nose in. We are
Yeah.
Douglas County after all. So
Well, that
Stephanie, you
gives me
wanted to say something?
You
Sorry.
you answered my question already because I was like, yeah, make sure you know like what because in Redmond, like if like oh like somebody could just park your RV in my driveway and live here, but we have ordinances that don't
Yeah.
allow that. But it's
right.
just a matter of like, well, do you have a neighbor that's going to tell on you or not? Um,
Yeah.
Hmm.
they call
Yeah.
it in and I wanted to add water and propane. So
Yes.
Right.
if you're asking
Right.
what folks want to bring, yeah, propane, especially for the cold, is like a huge one.
Such a good
Yeah.
point. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that when Housing First Umpqua started, we started to request donations, and this was in 2019, of RVs, to try that to get people in RVs instead of tents, because my God, being in a tent right now is yeah, I don't even want to think about it.
No.
But they couldn't find places for them to be, right? So anybody who would donate an RV would tend to be older. These RV parks want, nothing less than 10 years old. So you're talking about even that is, hard. People who don't have license, they can't move them. And if they don't move them and something happens, they get towed and they can't get them out. But having places where people could have an RV or two, right, on their property we have at the worst number amount is about 300 homeless people on the street. I'm not talking about any other category right now. This is, that's the worst case scenario. That's a fixable problem. It
Yeah.
really is,
Yeah.
so um, yeah. So
Well, thank you, Betsy, for everything you're doing about that. And thank you for just educating people like me who are super ignorant. Thank you.
well, somebody asked me a couple weeks ago, why don't people know about housing for Umpqua? And this was what you don't do if you want to influence people. I said, because they haven't been paying attention for 20 years.
Yeah.
But the reality is, I mean, housing first, not on housing first. The housing first model as a solution to homelessness started in the 1980s. The
Yeah.
1980s. At the same time that public housing dollars were cut and the structure of how we fund public housing was changed under the Reagan administration. Thanks to the Heritage Foundation, by the way, if that gives you a
Right.
clue of anything.
Yeah.
But so we've had a solution both to the housing crisis, particularly for the population that Housing for Somewhat deals with, which is primarily street level homeless folks. In tiny houses, RV parks. I mean, lots of people live by RV parks who have $400,000 motorhomes, right?
Yeah.
So um, it's not your trailer park of the past,
Yeah.
or maybe you guys never saw those, but in the 60s, there was some ramshackle trailer parks that were all over the country.
I grew up in one in
Anyway,
Illinois, so
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Particularly in that area, really it was a whole lot in that area. And you think the weather, but housing is shelter. I mean, that's what come around to now is that even tiny homes. So my husband and I lived in a 27-foot travel trailer for a few years. So I mean, it's doable. It's
Yeah.
not that horrible to live. It wasn't for us anyway. But we weren't on the street having to, you know, run away from the cops either, or,
Right.
hide from people. So, but also the other thing I want to point out is that on December 15th, I think it's the 236th anniversary of the Bill of Rights. And so when we think about, homelessness, that's one of the big things that, the idea that they have to, that they can't be anywhere when you
Yeah.
have, you certainly should have the right to exist. And one of the things that I have worked on, I don't know if we're going to try it again, is the Right to Rest Act. I don't think that it's been tried in Oregon since the last time we worked on it, which was 2021, maybe 20, with the state of Oregon. So I think people have just gotten exhausted about it. But it would be nice. And Housing for Sumco actually probably have a little thing about, how you can help people protect their constitutional rights when they're living outside on the 15th, which is this
Yeah.
week.
which is tomorrow.
Oh, thanks for reminding me. Yeah. But that'll be in
Yeah. That's
conjunction with some folks
crazy.
in Eugene. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anything else, anything in the last week that happened in our exciting community? Anybody wants to talk about?
Yeah, this changes the subject. I was wanted to briefly talk about the ODOT review of the MCOD Transit District Management and Hiring Practices.
Oh, yeah. How could I forget?
Yes, I thought that was quite interesting. Of course, Edo and his pals denied every bit of it and said it's a bunch of lies because that's what they do. One of the things I found very interesting that perhaps you knew, Betsy, that I wasn't aware of is more than a coincidence. Todd Vaughn's lawyer that he hired is one of the co sponsors of the vote by mail to ban vote by mail initiative.
Are you
Yeah.
serious?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was a good article. It really ties all this stuff in, I thought, pretty well.
Well, and then Ben is his paralegal, right? Because they were
Yeah,
trying to avoid disclosing some information under, I think, work product, which is, internal lawyer, working on stuff. And and keep in mind the three petitioners are the lawyer. It's Michaela Hammerson, who was
Yep.
the former board chair of Uncle Transit. She's still there. And then it was Ben, right? Those are the
right.
three,
Yep.
initiative for the vote by mail, and they all end up associated with this mess about the transit district here.
Well,
Corruption.
what was it? It was, as the article was saying, it was the talk about that's what the whole thing has been about, is they're trying to show that that Todd Vaughn got defeated because of fraud issues in vote by mail, and they want to expand on that statewide. They want to use this, as an example to justify banning vote by mail.
No.
So it's
Yeah, they admitted to it. I mean, that's what they said. Well, isn't the one guy, Ben, said that, right? That
yeah,
that's the reason that they were doing is to
yeah,
test the integrity of the vote by mail system. But this is one of those things that has just, gotten legs that
No.
every
No.
time somebody posts something, I challenge them because it's
Yep.
actually, is it the Heritage Foundation or one of those right-wing think tanks that actually tracks the data of voter fraud. And for the last, since we've had it 20 years, Oregon has only had like 15 cases of voter fraud,
Right.
most of which are mistakes, right?
Right.
Inadvertent errors. But the outright voter fraud just doesn't exist under vote by mail here. And I mean, that's all part of the world we live in today. It doesn't matter. Facts don't matter.
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it was just because it was no surprise that Edel, denied everything, and then and that this review was biased and everything's a lie and everything. So
Well, my biggest thing is if vote by mail is such a fraud, why is that every single state representative to Salem is a Republican from Douglas County? If vote by mail is such a fraud, maybe we need to look at every single one of their elections. I mean, if they are telling us that vote by mail is inherently fraudulent, I guess we need to do some kind of an inventory to look at every single one of the votes that were cast to propel them to the state legislature. But when we mention that, then they suddenly get really shy and are like, "No, no, no, we're not talking about state races." Yeah, whatever.
Well,
anyway,
I think they are talking about state races because this is all
yeah,
part of that national
What?
movement
Of
to,
course they are, but they're such hypocrites that they can't
that's
look
true.
at when they are winning and acknowledge that vote by mail actually works. Because if it didn't work, they wouldn't be in office.
Hey, but Marjorie Taylor, Greene,
Oh, Jesus.
well, listen, hey, if she can be even that reformed, you gotta admit there's some hope in the world, right?
I don't
She
because
she had this epiphany then wake up, maybe they can all be slapped into sense. I don't know.
I just see her
No,
as being a better politician than she ever was. Um, I do not think she's a better person.
it could be that. Well, I don't know.
She's
I,
not more
I,
moderate. She's still the same person who chased down David Hogg after he went through a school shooting. She's the same person who talked about Jewish space lasers. But what she has recognized is that her politics are so far to the right that she can never achieve any kind of national um, status because she is too far to the right. So now she wants to modulate, she wants to moderate. And suddenly she's trying to present herself as a moderate. And I'm like, girl, I'm not going to forget how you talked about Jewish space lasers. I'm not going to forget how you chased down an 18-year-old school shooting survivor. Um, and no, no, I wish that she had found reality. I don't believe that. I believe that what she found was how to be a better politician.
well, that is a possibility, and somebody probably, um, at least John and Francis remember Marilyn Kittleman, and she owns the Beacon. She's, one of the owners of the Beacon, if you know what that is.
Oh, okay.
And she was a county commissioner, but she told me that she would have been a registered Democrat if that would have gotten her elected.
Exactly.
And she's pretty far on the right.
Yeah.
So So you're right. I mean, that is an arena for opportunism, and some of it's pragmatic. I got to tell you, I am a Democrat because Bernie Sanders. So if you love or hate that I'm a Democrat, blame Bernie Sanders. Write him hate mail. I don't care. But that really, I would never have been a Democrat had Bernie Sanders or someone like him run for the presidency. Why I stayed, I don't know. I need my head examined. No, there's practical matters because before I even did
Yeah,
that, I had a friend who ran for county commissioner. And I said, become a Democrat, get them to endorse you so you can get their resources for your
right,
campaign
right.
because you can't buy it, period. The database that both the Republicans have and the Democrats have are so massive and so good
Yeah,
that it's really, really
yeah,
expensive. You can buy them because Bernie bought his own,
yeah,
but it is real expensive. And most small people will start running for office, independents can't afford it. And so she actually did become a Democrat,
yeah.
and they did endorse her. So,
And
um,
I am a lifelong Democrat who will say we are deeply flawed. I'm not saying that we are perfect by any stretch of the imagination. It's just if we are looking at it as a two-party system, I know the party I'm the side of. But that doesn't mean that a two-party system is what we need. It doesn't make it right. I'm just saying if we're in a two-party system, I know which side I'm on, but that doesn't mean that a two-party system meets any of our needs. I don't think that it does.
Well, we actually may have a choice because there is a ballot. I think they're in the signature gathering going to be for nonpartisan races, that
Yeah.
nonpart.
Yeah.
So, and that actually is a fix. That is a fix. And
That is
states
definitely a
like
step.
Vermont,
Yes, that's
it doesn't
that's
eliminate parties. What it eliminates is the taxpayer having to pay for the nominating election of the Democrats and the Republicans, because that's what
yeah.
we do. All the third parties or the minor parties, all of them have to have conventions, in order to, they can do it a different way, but that's even more expensive. So they have to fund their own nomination process. The Republicans and the Democrats do not. The taxpayer funds it.
And I know through my own talks with like my neighbors and friends who are like, well, I'll never be a Democrat. But when we actually sit down and talk, we have so much in common that I'm like, okay, this is when we have to get rid of those labels. Um, because the labels are what's really hindering us. It's our shared beliefs that is where our strength lies. And so these nonpartisan races, I think you're right, Betsy. I think that's where we can have some success.
Well, right now on the other side, I tell people, and I'm the chairperson of the candidate committee for the Dems. So
Yeah,
I tell people there's no such thing as a nonpartisan primary because as soon as somebody files, the Republicans are looking you up and the Democrats are looking you up, and we know exactly what party you're in. Okay. And we also do, and also forthrightness that we actually have a slate card and even in nonpartisan races that say here are all the Democrats running in these seats, and we pass it. We don't mail them out because that's too expensive, but we said we publicize them, and
yeah,
so it's if we can get back that somebody I was talking to today said if we could get past the isms, right, which is the problem, and I say
yeah,
or is like I'm a socialist, and if you want to categorize me, that's probably what most people might better understand than, but really I am libertarian in some views. I am socialist in economic policies, absolutely.
yeah,
But there's a lot of that we can find common ground
yeah.
that labels don't really fit, probably many of us, probably most of us is my
And
guess.
also the understanding that we don't have to agree on everything to agree on a
Yeah.
lot of stuff. Like, and so let's go with that. Let's go with everything we do agree on. I think there's this false narrative that we have to agree on every single thing.
Yeah.
Um, when that's just simply not true, nor is it realistic. I mean, there's always going to be disagreement. But if it comes to like the big things and the majority of things that we can have some agreement on, I mean, that's how we move forward.
Yeah, and I'll tell my boring story about the Patriot Act one more time. Probably won't be the last.
Please, I haven't heard it.
But
So it's not boring to me.
but here, the Patriot Act was happening, and we called, people were upset, and so we called for some meetings, and we ended up with meetings that had probably 75 people in them at the library, and half of them were right wing, some staunch constitutionalists, and others left wing, right? And we would say, and I facilitated most of them, and I would say, okay, we're only talking about one thing, okay? It's
Right.
the Patriot Act stuff because we agree on that. We're all here for the same reason. And if they
Yeah.
would segue away from it and say, okay, right, we agreed, let's go back to where, we focused on. We actually got Bill Fisher, who was a Republican senator at the time, and Peter DeFazio to sit on the dais of the county commission and have a press conference against the Patriot Act. And DeFazio happened to be one of the few Congress people who refused to vote for it, by the way.
That's
Um,
amazing.
and
That
so,
is
uh,
so cool.
and it was kind of one of those things that as long as you're right, as long as you stick to that issue, some of the things that we're trying to strategize right now about homelessness is where do we get to that place? We need to solve this problem. We need to address the problem of managing it better than until we do. And how do we get people to that place that they can say, okay, we can't continue to let this happen. So
Yeah.
maybe. Is there anything else? Anybody else have anything they want to discuss? No. All right.
We'll
Well,
see you
next,
next Sunday, right? At the
well,
memorial?
yeah, actually, we're not going to have this podcast because we're gonna live stream from the memorial, from the homeless memorial, hopefully. I'm the one doing it, so all that caveat before my YouTube stuff. We'll see. Hopefully that I can at least record it if we don't live stream it. But hopefully that we'll do that. And then I don't know that we have anything planned for the last well, actually then we're running into the last week in December, the last Sunday in December. It might actually be Ashley Hicks talking about the local public safety coordinating council. And if you don't know Ashley Hicks, um, she was an interesting, controversial city council person. And she and I are probably never going to agree on homelessness, but I do accept it. I do agree with some of her critique on the local public safety coordinating council, which is primarily it's about people involved in the criminal justice system. It's a
Well,
state
it sounds
mandated
like
committee.
it'll be a really interesting show, no matter what. I mean,
Yeah.
and I know I have nothing else except to learn, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so that's kind of like on the setting those sides that, differences aside again, is
Yeah,
saying, is there something that really that we can? And I think that most people, when they start to look at what it's supposed to do, are
yeah,
probably going to start asking questions of, well, why isn't it doing this? And
right.
why isn't it doing this? And
No,
then those bigger dialogues. I mean, part of it's funding. I'm going to tell you what ultimately the answer is, right?
sure.
We don't put enough money into fixing that system either, but it should be interesting
Well,
for
I
me.
say welcome, Ashley. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Bessie. Thank you, Stephanie, so much.
Thanks for having
Yes.
me. I enjoyed getting to know y'all better.
All
Thank you
right.
so
Thank
much.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right.